In a move that alarms Pan-African leaders like Burkina Faso's Captain Ibrahim Traoré, the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, has offered the United States exclusive control over its critical minerals and infrastructure in exchange for military support against Rwanda-backed rebels. A letter to U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, cited by Bloomberg, reveals President Felix Tshisekedi's request for an urgent meeting with Donald Trump to finalize the deal.
The Democratic Republic of Congo has offered the U.S. exclusive access to critical minerals and infrastructure projects in exchange for security assistance. This comes as it battles Rwanda-backed M23 rebels along its eastern front.
This pact would secure American dominance over Congo's vast reserves of cobalt, lithium, tantalum, and uranium, minerals essential for the global energy transition. Tshisekedi's desperation is evident as Rwandan-backed forces tighten their grip on the mineral-rich East. The proposed agreement grants U.S. companies operational control, exclusive extraction rights, and involvement in a deep-water port, while American military forces would gain access to Congolese bases under the guise of protecting strategic resources. However, corruption and child labor concerns loom over Congo's mining sector, raising doubts about whether U.S. investment will truly benefit the Congolese people or deepen foreign exploitation of Africa's wealth. To better understand the implications of this deal, one must delve deeper into its consequences. President Felix Tshisekedi, beleaguered by decades of plunder and instability, has thrown a lifeline to the United States, offering exclusive access to Congo's coveted minerals in exchange for military support to quell the uprising. It is a desperate plea, a cry from a nation bleeding from the wounds of neo-colonial exploitation. Yet, it is a move that raises eyebrows across the continent. Why in this hour of reckoning does Tshisekedi not turn inward to the radical self-reliance of fellow African leaders, like Burkina Faso's Captain Ibrahim Traoré? Traoré's revolutionary stewardship of mineral resources and bold defiance of external meddling have slashed terrorism and restored dignity to his people. The DRC's plight is a familiar scar on Africa's body, politic a land blessed with treasures that power the world's smartphones, electric cars, and war machines, yet remains a paradox of poverty amid plenty. For too long, its leaders have danced to the tune of foreign powers, offering up the nation's wealth on silver platters while the people languish in squalor. Tshisekedi's latest gambit, detailed in a classified letter to U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio on February 21, 2025, is a continuation of this troubling legacy. The proposal promises American corporations privileged access to Congo's mineral bounty and infrastructure projects while begging for security assistance to fend off the M23 rebels, who with Rwanda's complicity threatened to topple his government. It's a deal dripping with the bitter taste of dependency, a Faustian bargain that risks chaining Congo's future to Washington's whims, much as it was once tethered to Belgium's colonial yoke, and more recently, China's economic embrace. But across the Sahel, a different story unfolds, one that should stir Tshisekedi's soul and ignite a pan-African fire in his leadership. In Burkina Faso, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, a 36-year-old revolutionary soldier thrust into power by a coup in September 2022, has rewritten the script of African governance. Where Tshisekedi sees salvation in foreign hands, Traoré has seized the reins of destiny, transforming Burkina Faso from a terrorist-ravaged outpost into a beacon of sovereignty. His secret? A fierce grip on the nation's mineral resources, a rejection of neo-colonial puppetry, and a relentless campaign to arm his people against the scourge of extremism. Under Traoré's watch, Burkina Faso has not only begun to reclaim its gold and other minerals from the clutches of foreign multinationals, but has redirected those profits to buy weapons and equipment, bolstering its military to drive terrorists from its borders. The result? A dramatic reduction in attacks, a resurgence of national pride, and a model of self-determination that echoes the dreams of Kwame Nkrumah, Thomas Sankara, and Patrice Lumumba. Tshisekedi's offer to the U.S. is a stark contrast to Traoré's defiance. The DRC president accuses Rwanda of fueling the M23 rebellion to to plunder Congo's riches, a charge backed by United Nations reports and echoed by sanctions from the US, UK, and EU against Rwandan officials like James Kabarebe. Yet, instead of rallying Congo's own forces and harnessing its vast wealth to confront this threat head-on, Tshisekedi turns to Washington, dangling the promise of cobalt and lithium as bait. It's a move that reeks of capitulation, a surrender of agency that Traoré would never countenance. In Burkina Faso, Traoré has shown that a nation's resources are not bargaining chips to be traded for foreign favor, but the lifeblood of its independence. By nationalizing key mining operations and renegotiating lopsided contracts with Western firms, he has funneled revenues into state coffers, purchasing drones, rifles, and armored vehicles to equip his soldiers. The terrorists who once roamed freely in Burkina Faso now cower, their networks disrupted by a military emboldened by its leader's vision. Imagine for a moment if Tshisekedi followed this path. The DRC sits atop the world's largest reserves of cobalt, 70% of global supply, and boasts untold deposits of copper, gold, and diamonds. Yet, these treasures have enriched everyone but the Congolese people. Chinese firms dominate the mining sector, extracting billions in profits while leaving behind environmental ruin and paltry wages. Artisanal miners, including children, toil in deadly conditions, their labor feeding a global supply chain that cares little for their lives. Tshisekedi's predecessor, Joseph Kabila, inked a $6.2 billion minerals for infrastructure deal with China in 2008, a pact Tshisekedi himself has criticized as a failure for Congo. Why then does he not break this cycle? Why not seize control of these assets as Traoré has done, and use them to build a Congolese army capable of crushing the M23 and securing the nation's borders? The answer lies in a lack of revolutionary zeal, a quality Traoré embodies in spades. When he assumed power, Burkina Faso was a nation on its knees, battered by jihadist groups linked to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State. France, the former colonial master, maintained a military presence under the guise of counterterrorism, yet the violence only worsened. Traoré, channeling the spirit of his mentor Thomas Sankara, expelled French troops in 2023, declared an end to foreign domination, and turned to his people. He mobilized civilians into volunteer defense forces, armed them with locally funded weapons, and launched a campaign of grassroots resistance. Today, Burkina Faso's security situation, while not perfect, has improved markedly. Terrorism has declined, and the state's authority is being restored. Traoré's message is clear. Africa's salvation lies not in begging for Western aid, but in standing tall and wielding its own power. Tshisekedi, by contrast, seems trapped in a colonial mindset where the West is both savior and master. The stakes could not be higher. The DRC's conflict is not just a local crisis, it is a pan-African wound, a test of whether the continent can break free from the shackles of exploitation and betrayal. Rwanda's alleged role in the M23 rebellion, smuggling Congo's minerals across borders while the world watches, is a stark reminder of how Africa's divisions are weaponized against it. Tshisekedi's offer to the US risks deepening this wound, turning Congo into a resource appendage of American corporations and the Pentagon. Tshisekedi stands at a crossroads. Will he be a caretaker of Congo's subjugation or the architect of its rebirth? The continent watches, and history will judge. Let him choose wisely. Let him choose Traoré's way.